Hi folks, Rob Crompton here. Just like to share with you some thoughts as a sort of helping hand for folk who are trying to make their way after having left the Watchtower movement, the Jehovah's Witnesses. It can be a great liberation to walk away from that very controlling religious environment. And once we're out of it, we can indeed relish our freedom. But the trouble is now and again that there are various doubts that can ambush us, and we wonder, well, one I want to look at today is what if they were right? So imagine this situation. You're relaxing in peace. Nice, pleasant environment where you can enjoy the view, feel the warm spring sunshine, you can just relax. And then maybe you open a news page, and what do you see? Well, you see all sorts of things that might spoil that pleasant view. There they are: disasters, wars, crime, pandemics, all sorts of horrible things going on. One day is the next to join that horrible list, Armageddon. And you can't help thinking, what if the witnesses were right? Should I go back? Or, put it another way, what if they were wrong? Could I go back? Let's take a close look at that, what I call that Armageddon timeline. Starts off way back there with the Old Testament prophet Daniel and his prophecy of the 7 times 70, the 490 years leading to Christ. That's the one that sets the standard. 490 years from the return from exile in Babylon until the coming of Jesus. Very, very persuasive. Trouble was, of course, that not everything that people were expecting back then actually happened. There has to be more to it, and they look for a second coming and try and fit that old prophecy to unfolding events in order to pinpoint the time when Jesus will come again and the great climax will happen, and the purposes of God will be fully restored and implemented in a paradise earth. The next guy to appear along this timeline is a fascinating one, Robert Fleming, early in the 18th century. He's not just some old crank who's coming up with crazy notions. He's very much a mainstream writer and thinker. He's a Scottish Presbyterian minister, living in Holland, actually. And he worked out his understanding of the ancient prophecies, and writing at the very beginning of the 18th century, he predicted that by the end of that century, the foremost supporters of the Roman Catholic papacy would have a great, undoing by the foremost supporters. He meant the French aristocracy. What happened? The end of the 18th century? Well, the French Revolution. And then when during that time of war turmoil. The French General Berthier marched on the Vatican and took the Pope prisoner. Gosh, it looked as though Fleming, almost a century before this, had scored a bullseye, and his writings enjoyed immense popularity, and people began to work out how the countdown from the French Revolution would work out. And among those people was one William Miller, who fixed on the date 1845. That's the time when we could expect the second coming of Christ. Trouble was, it didn't happen. And we should note that Miller is, in fact, still really part of the Protestant mainstream. He's a Baptist minister. But at this point, this enterprise, interpreting the prophecies to pinpoint the second coming, it's being abandoned to the sectarian fringe. Following the failure of Miller's predictions, we have various people coming on the scene, but in particular, we have Charles Taze Russell, who came up with his reworking of the same ideas that were rooted in Fleming's work and in Miller's work. And Russell came up with a very detailed interpretation, which if you can imagine yourself prior to 1914 and not knowing what's going to happen then, read his work, and it can be very, very persuasive indeed. It's beautifully written. It's well argued, so it seems. It all hangs together. But 1914, though it resulted in war, it didn't bring about the expected climax. And it was left to Russell's successors to try and work out what was going to happen next. Rutherford, he came up with the date 1925, and when you read his work, it's nothing like so well constructed as Russell's or Miller's. Certainly not as well constructed as Fleming's, and it's a long way from meeting the standard that had been set by that application of Daniel's prophecies. Rutherford, it seems, is struggling, but he's convinced that 1925 would see the resurrection of those ancient patriarchs, the people he called the ancient worthies, and the kingdom of God would be fully established and rule over the earth, which would become a paradise. That didn't happen either. And it was left to his successors to work out how it was all going to progress. The names drop out of it here, though it's widely realized that the next writer was Fred Franz. None of the publications are actually, none of the authors are identified in those. 1975 was going to be the date. And folk were convinced that was going to happen, but it didn't. What could they say? Well, all they could say was, well, it would happen very soon after that. Time went on, and still they would say it's going to happen very soon. And no further attempts at setting dates are being made. But it's going to happen soon. Really, very soon. And this whole enterprise is losing credibility rapidly. Credibility has vanished into the clouds because all along they were not right. They kept on getting it wrong. At the very beginning, it looked persuasive. And as time went on, it became less and less persuasive. And more, we have to admit, they kept on getting it wrong. What if they were right? That doubt says, no, they weren't. So be strong, move forward with confidence. Don't let that doubt drag you back. They kept getting it wrong. So where do we go from here? Go back to that quiet, pleasant spot where you could relax, enjoy the view, enjoy the warm sunshine, pick up a book to read. If you're interested in an in-depth study of this topic, well, you could try my book, Counting the Days to Armageddon. That is one for the serious student. Or for a much easier read, as you make your way towards freedom, try my Pathways to Freedom. Or read anything else that takes your fancy. And think about the various interests, the activities that you had to forego as a loyal witness. There they all are. Well, not all of them. Some of them. There, some of them are. Education, travel, arts and music, volunteering. What about your employment? Does that open up opportunities? Think of, under each of these headings, try putting an idea of your own. What would you put under these? What education? What things would you like to learn about? What travel would you like to do? What arts and crafts, drama and so forth would you like to be involved in? And then there's a completely blank one. That's one for you to fill in yourself. What you're going to put in that yellow one. I'm sure you'll think of all sorts of things. So tell us in the comments what you would like to be doing. And all the time, the question to ask yourself is not, am I good at this? But do I enjoy it? That's the thing. Enjoy life. And welcome to freedom. Bye, folks. See you again soon.